Hey, good to see you here tonight. I want to thank, what's his name? My friend for doing announcements, right? Again, good to be here. If you weren't here last week, I was actually gone last week. I heard Alex Cross did an amazing job, didn't he? If you weren't here, I know the crowd's a little lower on that weekend. You need to go online. You need to go to crossbridge.church and you need to listen. It was a powerful message on regrets and probably one that we could all listen to several times. And I would just encourage you to go and to check that out. Hey, I also want to thank, it was a great Christmas at Crossbridge here. So many people across 8 different services. There was between 23 and 2,400 people that passed through the doors of Crossbridge. And yeah, that's good news. And I want to thank, there was so many of you who served in one way or the other, from driving a shuttle to work in the parking lot to work in the doors, kids, sound, worship, the whole 9 yards. And so it takes an army to serve that many people. And what I'm thankful for is we have that army, and it's you. And you did a wonderful job, and so thank you for investing in the mission of leading people into a relationship with Jesus. I think I saw this week, I'm going to say the number, I hope I get it right, but I think there were 21 people who started a relationship with Jesus over Christmas. Yeah. That's why we do what we do. As Galen mentioned, we're starting a new series, and it's based out of the book of Nehemiah. It's a little book in the Old Testament. In fact, and really we're going to focus on the first 4 chapters of it. So across the next several weeks, if you want to be reading, doing a little reading, I would begin to look at Nehemiah. You can kind of stay ahead of me, right? And point out some things to me. In fact, I've been reading Nehemiah chapter 1 the last several days over and over. I was on an airplane this morning, and I was reading Nehemiah. And so I'm really excited to share with you. And this weekend, it's going to be more of an overview. In fact, what you have is you have Nehemiah, in a sense, who's writing his own story. He was a tremendous leader, and we're going to look at his life and see what we can learn. In fact, this series, I think the best way I could kind of put it in a capsule is that it's on leadership. I've never actually preached a series on leadership, but I am really excited to do so. In fact, when I was reading those first 4 chapters, there are so many things in that man's life that are transferable to ours. And so I'm hoping you come hungry and ready to learn. Here's kind of why I think this is important. I've been thinking about preaching from Nehemiah for a very long time. It's one of those things where I've looked at it and thought, okay, is this the next series? No. Is it the next series? No. And I just kind of keep it in the back of my mind. And so I actually did the same process a couple months ago, and I thought, is that January? And I said, no. And then I got to like early December, and I was like, yeah, I think it's it. And I'll tell you why. You know, I think about 2018. I don't know what your plans are. I don't know what God has in store for you. I'm hoping great things. But I do know this, and I believe this with all my heart. I think 2018 will be a very, very important banner kind of year for Crossbridge. I believe that. In fact, I believe it's going to be the year that we take some very large steps, some steps for us that will mean great things in regards to expanding the kingdom and expanding the mission. Because of that, I believe this. So I'm going to be stretched, but if I'm stretched, you're going to be stretched. If God's going to move Crossbridge forward, it will be because he's growing a whole lot of leaders here to accomplish the mission. The mission isn't about the staff. The mission isn't just about the church board. The mission is about all of us uniting to say, God, if you think I can, I'm willing to be a leader for you to accomplish this incredible mission of leading people into a relationship with you. So let's pick up in Nehemiah, overview, right? We're going to fly very high level, just big picture. After 70 years in exile, the Jews had returned home. They'd rebuilt their temple in Jerusalem. They were able to worship the Lord in their own land, but their city, it was a mess. In fact, it was in ruins. The once great capital of the promised land was a depressing heap of rubble exposed to her enemies. Nehemiah gets word of this. In fact, he asks a question. He says, man, how are things going back there? He gets word back, and the word back is, it's a mess. That the whole city's in ruins. And we're going to get more into that next week. We're actually going to look at chapter 1. We're not even going to really look at chapter 1 this week. We're just going to look at big picture. See, the book of Nehemiah is about God reestablishing his people physically and spiritually. Now, just this personal connection, right, for me, here's the deal. I've been thinking a lot about even in ways in which I need to grow. And so one of the things, it's always fun to preach a subject in which you feel like you need a lot of work too. So I'm not talking to you from the sense of, hey, I'm an incredible leader, you be one too. I am talking to you from the standpoint of, I want to be a better leader, I want you to be a better leader too. And I think all of us have room for growth, right? In fact, I think this is the time of year where we tend to do that. We self-evaluate. We come into the new year, we self-evaluate, we take a look at ourselves, and we say, what needs to change? What do I want to change? And so I thought this would come at very, very good timing. For some of us, that's surface work. For some of us, thinking house-wise, maybe it's new siding. Others of us, we need the whole thing to be gutted, right? Down to the studs, and we need it rebuilt. And that's okay. It's okay because I believe God can do both. He can do a siding kind of job or he can do complete remodels. But here's one of the first things I want to point out as I was looking at this big picture of Nehemiah. May the sight of rubble cause us not to walk away, but to move towards it. May the sight of rubble cause us not to walk away, but to move towards it. I think God can help every one of us change. I believe that or I wouldn't be standing here. I believe that God changes people's hearts, which results in changing people's lives. Philippians 2:13 puts it this way. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. Isn't that good to know? That God is working in you to change your desires and in giving you the power to live in a way that pleases him. I also know this, that sometimes, in fact, this time of year, change can be overwhelming, can't it? When you're looking at your own life and you're thinking about what is next, or you're thinking about the things that you want to change, it can be absolutely overwhelming. Some of you open up your bank account and you look and you're like, oh, so overwhelming. You think, I could never dig out of this mess. Others of you step on the scale. Should I even talk about it? So overwhelming, right? And you think, number one, how did I get here? And number two, how do I ever get back there? Anybody? I didn't think you'd raise your hand on that one, right? And others, even in those quiet moments, just riding around in the car, right? And God whispers to us about something that needs to change in your life, and you think, I wish it could, but that thing's been going on for years. Could it really change? Or will it just be another year? Another year of broken promises, right? Of resolutions that go unmet. Matthew 19:26 says this, Jesus looked at them intently and he said, I think this goes for a lot of things, right? Humanly speaking, it's impossible. But with God, everything is possible. What if we could just believe that verse? Humanly speaking, we would tackle things in a way which we would recognize, humanly speaking, not going to happen. But speaking in God terms, it can happen. I get it. It's easier to ignore and it's easier to walk away. In fact, when I think about even Nehemiah, right, and he gets news, and we'll talk more about his response next week, but he gets news, and it would have been so easy just to go, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let's talk about something else, right? So sorry to hear the city's in ruins. Maybe someone will fix that. No. He moved towards it. I was thinking in my own life, and I'll share a little moment of vulnerability. I was thinking about. So I've got some things, surface level things, that I'm trying to work on. Right? New year, And not long ago, I was getting ready for a funeral. And you probably noticed I don't wear a suit, right? Anybody notice that? Okay. In fact, when I wear one, it's interesting. When I wear one, it always happens. Someone will look at me and say, "Oh, you do have one?" And I'm like, "I do. I actually own two," right? And I wear them at funerals and weddings. That's pretty much the extent of it. And I'll tell you, though, I have two suits. I have a gray one, and I have a black one. The other day, I went to my closet, and I was trying to figure, it was a funeral, so I went to the back of the closet where I keep them. And I looked, and I was like, gray or black? Black. You know why? Because my black suit's my fat suit. Yeah. When I bought the black suit years ago, I was a little heftier, right? And then there was a point in my life where I toned down, and I got skinnier, and Rachel said, let's go get a new suit. And so I went and got this gray suit, which, it fit perfectly then. So now I got a fat suit and a skinny suit. So I kind of gave it away, right? If you see me wearing the black suit, just know I'm feeling kind of fat, right? If you see me wearing the gray suit, cover up, because if the buttons fly off, somebody's getting hurt, right? At least that's how it'd be right now. But I'll tell you this, the first step, right? Because here's what happened the other day. I pull out the black suit. I know, I'm not even going to try to get in the gray suit, right? So I pull out the fat suit, and I'm putting it on, and I'm getting ready for the funeral. I get right here, and I go, oh. I thought, this thing must have shrunk, right? Because there's no way my fat suit is tight. I'm going to need like an extra fat suit, right? Actually, I'm not buying another one. That was the moment. And I was like, if I can't get in the skinny one and I can't get in the fat one, it's not the suit's fault, right? It's my fault. Like, it's too much Culver's, right? I admitted it. I'll admit it, at least once. But I'll tell you this. First step for all of us is self-awareness, right? Self-awareness of the things that we know need to change. The second step is to do something about it. To actually make some change, some intentional change. We find in the story of Nehemiah, he hears a mess beyond his own, actually. This isn't really his own mess, but he chooses not to walk away. He chooses to walk towards it. Listen to the mess as it's described. Hananiah, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who'd returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. And they said to me, things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. He's describing a mess. And next week, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about his response, and we're going to talk about how he got there. I was riding with my kids my family back from Christmas. We were in Indianapolis, and we came back from Christmas, and we had listened to a New Year's message on last Sunday morning. And my daughter said, she went around the car, and she said, hey, Mom, what do you think is the one thing you need to work on this year? And then I knew, right? Rachel was driving, Gerald was back here, and I'm back here, and she's in the front seat. I thought, oh, she's coming to me eventually, right? And she was asking this question, and she got to me, and she said, Dad, what do you think? And I said, I need more time. Because, sure, do I want to work on, eating a little better? Yes, but that's very surface level, right? Most of us would probably say that. The truth is, though, there's a lot bigger things going on than my suit doesn't fit. In fact, I sat there for a little bit, and then I came back to her, and I said, Tamara, I think there's a lot of ways which I could answer your question if I was to answer it honestly. But I think the biggest one for me, when it comes down to it, is this, is I want to be a better leader. And then I said, and I think that gets broken down a whole lot of ways. I want to be a better leader, just lead myself better, number one. Number two, I want to be a better leader at home for you. And number three, I want to be a better leader at church. And the truth is, those are three large things. And that the only way that happens is going to be if God helps it to happen. What if we were all to pray, God, make me a better leader? I'm going to make a controversial statement today, and here it comes. Are you ready? Every Jesus follower is a leader. Every Jesus follower is a leader. Here's my angle, okay? We're not talking about great, talented people doing great, talented kinds of things. Sure, I mean, you can always look at someone and you go, oh, I mean, they just, like on the day when talents were handed out, they got more than I did, right? Or you can look at them and just go, oh, they're just natural, right? That's just what they do. But see, what I'm talking about is this. What if, I mean, we're looking at God's design for normal, godly people to lead in extraordinary, godly kinds of ways. Let me say that again. We're looking at God's design for normal, godly people to lead in extraordinary, godly kinds of ways. You look at the story of Nehemiah, and God used him to do something that was special. To do something, this city was rebuilt in like weeks. Shouldn't have ever happened as fast as it did. It's because God was behind it. You know, and here's kind of the cool thing. Nehemiah wasn't a prophet. Nehemiah wasn't a priest. Nehemiah was a layman. He was just a guy. And he wasn't like, I mean, he's like all of us. He's just a guy. And he chose to run into the rubble, and he chose to be used by God to do something extraordinary. You know what I hear a lot around here? And, let's just talk about it, right? I'm going to put it out there. Here's what I hear a lot around here. Many of you say, we ask you to do something, right? The most common excuse around Crossbridge not to volunteer, not to use your gifts or talents is this. Are you ready? Oh, I'm not a leader. I'm going to tell you, don't say that anymore. Don't. Because number one, it's not true. Now, there may be certain things that you'd say, I don't think I'm made to do that. Or I don't think I'm made to do, Kevin, what you're asking me to do. But the truth is, all of you are leaders. All of you have the opportunity to influence someone. All of you have people in your life that you are influencing. You're influencing one way or the other. You're either influencing them towards God or you're influencing them away. But every one of us, we're leaders. There was a quote by D. Hawk that says this: influence happens everywhere, and often from the middle of the pack. Influence happens everywhere, and often from the middle of the pack. Over the next several weeks, we're going to look at some of these great lessons on leadership that came out of the rubble. And here's what I know. The church needs leaders. Like Crossbridge, we need leaders. We need people who will be influencers for Jesus and for his mission. People who will say, listen, I don't know that I was born a leader. I don't know that I was given like when the talents were being passed down. I don't know that the truckload poured on me, right? I don't know that I have all the gifts. But God, I'm willing to be a leader for your use if you can help me to become one. If that would be our prayer, I can only imagine what God could do in your life and through this church. See, when you become a follower of Jesus, you're enlisted as a leader. Listen to this verse in the NIV version. It says this, Matthew 4:19. Come follow me, Jesus said. There's this invitation, right? Come and follow me. And in the same verse, and I will send you out to fish for people. There's the invitation to say, come. And oftentimes, see, what we do is we're like, oh, Jesus, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for giving my ticket to heaven. I'm good. What you realize that you weren't saved to sit. You were saved to be sent. That this is twofold. Come and go. Come and go. In fact, even if you look at how Jesus modeled this, I mean, his leaders, they had an opportunity to walk around and follow him and see what he did, right? And then upon him leaving, he said, go and you do what I've been doing. The mission is about each of us being willing to be inconvenienced and available for his use. I was driving down the road the other day, and I don't know how to describe where I was. I was coming down a highway, and I was in a hurry, and I was coming over this crest, and I met a truck. And the truck was pulling over to the side of the road, and he had his flashers on, like his truck was breaking down, right? But I was in a hurry. And so I thought, I just, I went on by him, I looked in my rear view mirror and his flashers were going. He was sitting there. And then I felt like the Lord began to bug me, right? And I felt like he said, that wasn't very nice, right? Are you in that big a hurry? You probably could have stopped and tried to help. And my instant response was, I was like, Lord, today's the day of cell phones. I mean, he's got friends. He's got family, I'm sure. Someone's going to help the man. And I got about a half mile down the road, and I got to the stop sign, and he was bugging me. And I just, in my heart, I was like, oh. So finally I was like, Lord, fine, right? I turned the car around, I put my lights on. I'm just joking. And I drove back to the truck, and I went up the hill. I came over. I was expecting to see him there, and you know what? Nowhere. It was the weirdest thing. As far as I could see down the highway, no truck. It was like a side road. I looked down, and there was no truck. I don't know where he went. Now, the truth is, I was glad he was gone, right? I whipped that car around and went back the other direction. I thought, okay. But I want to tell you something. I felt good. You know why I felt good? Because I just knew I'd done what I was asked to do. See, here's what God wants for us. He just wants us to listen. He just wants us to be willing to be inconvenienced. He just wants us to be available. And what if we were to listen, to be available, to be used? God could do great things. Now, here's what I think it's going to take. I think God's going to have to change how we think. For us to really, and I hope, as we go into this series, I'm excited to share with you over the next 3 weeks. But I think God's going to have to help you to change how you, some of you have it so ingrained in your head that you just are what you are and you could never become more. That growth, yeah, you're out there. I know you are. I want to tell you something. Stop thinking that way. God could he could use you. He made you. He created you. He said you are his workmanship. You are valuable. You have talents and you have gifts. Romans 12:2 says this. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you'll learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. I was sitting in the service last week, as I told you, and I was listening to a New Year's message, and he talked about this passage, and he was talking about God changing the way we think, and I've been thinking about it all week. And he said there was two main things that contributes to changing the way we think. You know what those are? A great time of year for this. And number one is the Bible. The Bible, if you'll read it, and you'll apply it, and you'll make it a pattern in your life, a habit in your life, his word, his truth will reprogram you. In fact, here's the deal. You have believed many, many lies. The enemy's fed you lies, and you've believed them about yourself, about what you're capable of, about your past. But when you read this book, you discover that he thinks very differently about you than you think about yourself. And reading this book is what can change you. Reading this book is reprogramming us in a way in which we begin to see ourselves as his masterpieces who could be used for his kingdom. Now, in fact, Psalm 119 says this, I've hidden your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. And Job puts it this way, I've not departed from his commands, but I've treasured his words more than daily food, and I'm hungering for it. Now, the second thing he talked about was people. The Bible and people are the two things that can transform the way we think. In fact, 1 Corinthians 15:33 says this, don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character. Bad company corrupts good character. Proverbs puts it this way, walk with the wise and become wise, associate with fools and get in trouble. Why do you think? Do you think we push and push and push small groups just so we can say we have a bunch of them? No. We encourage you to get in a circle of people to make Christian friends for a reason. Because we believe if you have the right influence in your life, and you're sitting in a circle and you're talking about the right things and you're praying for one another and you got some sort of accountability in your life, that will mean growth for you. I also know this, and you know it too. You can look probably at the 4 or 5 people that you hang out with the most, and it'll tell you a lot about where you're headed. It'll tell you a lot about where you're headed. I think back to my teenage days, and ooh boy, did it talk about, it told about where I was headed. And I always thought to myself, like, oh, I'm fine. Like, I can walk down that road with them, right? I'm going to be the good influence. It never works that way. Now, do you need to have people in your life that you're ministering to? Absolutely. But you also need to have people surrounding you that are helping you to think differently, that are helping you to grow spiritually. As I wrap this up, what if our thinking could actually be renewed, right? What if through this series, God were to help us to think differently, to change our hearts and to change our minds, to maybe like things like this, right? That change could actually happen in your life with His help. I mean, it could actually happen. The things that you've jotted down on a piece of paper, that could actually happen if you were to trust God and He helped you to make it happen. That you would actually believe, even though humanly speaking, there's a whole lot of things that are impossible, but you were actually to believe that with God all things are possible. All things, that's what Scripture says, are possible. What if we were to believe that every pile of rubble is meant to be rebuilt? That every mess is meant to be restored? And what if we believed that I'm not just a follower, but I have the potential to be a godly leader? Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity to share your truth and your word. And God, man, this is the time of year that many of us are evaluating and looking at our lives and wishing for something different. God, I pray that it wouldn't just be about methods and new patterns and new habits. And God, we'd recognize we need you. We need to look to you first and foremost, because you are the one who can give us hope. You are the one who makes change happen within us. You are the one, God, who, when we shoot for some little goal of maybe even just losing some weight, but God, sometimes we're looking at surface level kind of things that we want to happen in our life, and you're looking to do something on a whole deeper level. God, I pray that we would invite you to help us with the little changes and the big ones. And that we would believe with you all things are possible. And God, I pray that may we see your potential. The potential that when you look at us, you see. And God, may throughout this series, may we offer ourselves in a way that says, God, I'm an instrument for your use. Teach me, show me, help me. I ask this in Jesus' name.